Hello out there. Wonderful internet. Well, wonderful may be a fucking overstatement. But, hello. So, hello to all the people that actually watch us do this dumb shit. We are your bearded brothers. I am Matt.
I think I'm Chris today.
Who knows? And we are back with yet another sports podcast. And we are here to talk mess and not get paid for it.
Goddamn right. We're just going to sit in front of these microphones and talk for roughly anywhere from 2 to 3 hours.
More than likely, yes.
And not get paid a single dime.
Not a dime. All right. Well, not entirely sure where to start, but
I don't know. Do you want to start with the news? Some of the hirings and shit?
Yep. That's, I think, where we'll start. There have been a buttload of hirings. So, right now...
metric ton.
There have been. A metric butt ton. B-U-T-T-E. It's an actual measurement, by the way.
I know.
So, right now, if you are a fan of the Seattle Seahawks or the Washington Commanders, you can skip most of this because your team still has not hired a coach.
Which, I don't know what you're going to do. I mean, Washington, I think we all kind of have a feeling of who's likely going to get hired there. Probably going to be Bieniemy, right? Like, it'd be kind of shocking to bring him in and not hire him to be the next head coach, right? But as far as the Seahawks goes, I have no idea how you replace Pete Carroll with anybody good.
I mean, at the moment, they're reporting that Bieniemy is a long shot hire at best.
Which is weird to me, by the way. Like, why bring him in the first place then? I don't know.
I don't know, man. But
because he kept being the guy that was going to be tapped,
we
right?
can definitively confirm that Ben Johnson will not be a candidate for either of those jobs, as he has decided to stay in Detroit. Also, apparently his asking price was prohibitive. They balked. The two teams balked at what he wanted. So both of them kind of said...
I think he's proved that he's worth some of that cash, but you know.
Now, there's also Aaron Glenn, the Lions' defensive coordinator, which hasn't been horrible.
I mean, we all know that's Dan Campbell's job, but yeah.
For the Seahawks, they've been looking at Mike MacDonald.
Oh boy.
He's the DC of the Ravens.
Yeah.
They've also done a series of different in-person meetings with Raiders defensive coordinator Patrick Graham, Giants OC Mike Kafka, Cowboys DC Dan Quinn, and Panthers DC Ejiro Evero.
Evero would make a little bit of sense, but like, again, the problem is, like I said in the first place, replacing, Pete Carroll is going to be so difficult because you're not just replacing a head coach, you're replacing a head coach who brought culture to that team, like a specific culture. And trying to keep that culture around without that head coach, even if he's in the front office, is going to be really difficult.
Now, the Commanders have looked at Aaron Glenn, Dan Quinn, Mike MacDonald, Ravens associate head coach and defensive line coach Anthony Weaver, and also Houston offensive coordinator Bobby Slowick Jr.
None of those are like amazing in my book. Actually, I just don't know. Why not? Does Bieniemy just not want to be a head coach? Is that what's going on here?
I don't know. And watching the offense last year, I don't know if they would want him as head coach.
That wasn't really his fault, but yeah, I get it. Like, you look at that team's on the offense, and I don't know, man. Their quarterback is not a first stringer. I hate to say it. I just don't think Sam Howell's a first stringer. I think he's a very good backup, actually, and I think he can be a bridge QB for a year or two, but he is not a mainstay starter. He just isn't.
No, I obviously feel like, no.
So, if you have that as your quarterback, it's hard to necessarily go that he did a bad job. Like, he still managed to, like, let's be honest, he still managed a 500 team. I think, right? Like I think they were like close to 500 if they weren't. Um, but the point is that like, can you imagine if they had an actual QB there? It's hard not to say that that would make a difference.
And I think what they really want to see, though, and I think what they would want to look at, if I'm being honest, is um, if you do bring in a QB and then he has success, great. But how much of the success that he's had can be attributed to Andy Reid, whose team is still plugging right along without Bieniemy? And
Yeah, but you still have Mahomes, and they had a significantly worse season than they have in the past.
yes, but they figured it out. And I'm just saying.
No, I know. I'm saying that it takes two. It takes both, right? He can't.
Yeah,
be,
obviously, but I mean, how much of it was the fact that he had a Mahomes and he had a Reid, and how much of it is that how much of it was him, and that's I think what everybody's kind of curious about. I think even you've mentioned that before.
I have. I still think he did a pretty competent job with Sam Howell as the QB. I would like to see him with an actual QB again and just see can he replicate even part of that success that they had at the Chiefs.
Now, it could also be that they. So if I'm right, he was brought in before the sale of the team to Josh Harris.
Yes.
Maybe they don't view him as their guy.
Maybe, which would also be weird, because remember the amount of times prior to him taking this OC job that he would get head coaching interviews and stuff.
Yeah, but
it happened a lot.
It's still a thing, and there may be something about him personally that they, like, maybe he doesn't do the political thing, the political speak thing that they would prefer to hear. The Vrabel problem.
Which, by the way, the fact that we haven't heard about Vrabel going anywhere is actually a little shocking.
A little bit, but it could also be that he's just going to take a year off of coaching.
Maybe. Maybe he's just waiting for wherever Bill Belichick goes and he'll just follow his ass.
That entirely could be, but he may also be waiting to see if there's better opportunities next season. Because who knows?
He might be thinking there's opportunities next season, yeah.
Yeah.
Because like you're saying, like there's a good chance that if the Cowboys have another one and done playoff or even only go out in the second round, that Mike McCarthy might be done. There's a chance with, depending on what the Vikings do in draft, which is, that could also lambast KOC, to be honest, depending on what happens there. I hate to say it, but there's a chance that if they don't draft a good QB, or if they don't draft a QB and they get somebody in free agency and they have another stinker year, he'll be in the hot seat. I don't know if he'll lose his job, but he'll definitely be in the hot seat.
Definitively will be, and I think so will Adolfo Mensa.
Yep, 100%. Like, yeah, I got thoughts and things there. And then, obviously, we know Bills, that might be opening up, depending on, how the season goes for next year, because he was already in the hot seat this year, let alone if he has another year again,
Exactly.
We've talked about the Steelers and how they should move on from Mike Tomlin and bring in somebody at some point. There's rumors that if Jared Mayo doesn't work out, like pretty much right away with the Patriots, that they might just end up moving on from that.
Mm-hmm.
There's obviously no one gives a shit about the Panthers, so I'll just pretend that they don't exist right now for the sake of this. The Jets, if for some reason it doesn't work with Aaron Rodgers, there's definitely an opportunity that Robert Saleh might lose his job.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if anyone wants the Jets job, but it's more enticing than the Panthers, I'll say that. Man,
if the Giants don't have some sort of bounce back Dable,
I think Dable's done well enough, but maybe he'll be definitely in the hot seat, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see here. Who else do we still got? I think
Dennis Allen.
Yeah, Dennis Allen for sure should be. I'm surprised he actually kept his job. He should be right on. He should have a foot out the door at this point almost.
Yeah, for the Saints. Yeah.
Yep.
So there are a few places out there.
I would normally say Zach from fucking from the Bengals, but the thing is, Zach got lucky with Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow saved his job. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
and might save his job again next season.
Obviously, I mean, Burrow went down injured, and that just stunk. There wasn't anything, and they still ended with a winning record.
Yeah.
They didn't make the playoffs, but they still ended with a winning record. They
In fact, yeah, I was gonna say if there's one, Burrow Zach is completely safe. I think Kevin Stefanski is super safe. Like they don't have a QB, and they still made playoffs.
They did not. They don't have a QB, and your star running back went out in the second week.
Yeah,
and you still made the fucking playoffs. Stefanski is so safe there right now. I think he could murder somebody in the streets of Cleveland, and they'd sweep it under the rug.
Makes me sad that he's not our OC anymore.
I love that
because he clearly knew what the hell he was doing.
Oh, obviously.
And then let me see here. I think Nick Sirianni might have to be like eyeing the door a little bit because the Eagles expect greatness at this point, and if you don't provide, man, you're gonna get
especially now that you've brought in Kellen Moore and you've brought in. Well, we'll talk about it.
We'll talk about who they brought in, but
they brought in two new coordinators who both of them have pretty good stat sheets in terms of coordination.
And let's not forget Bears. Let's be honest. If they have another bad season, especially after this draft.
So I think a lot of that is going to... What they do with this pick is going to determine a lot of what happens next.
100%.
So let's get into, though, the hirings. Ones that we have not yet talked about. The Falcons have found their head coach, and it is not Bill Belichick. It is Raheem Morris. Now,
by the way, apparently I heard the reason why Bill Belichick didn't get hired is because apparently the front office didn't like him.
Apparently?
Because, to be honest, which is hilariously stupid, because all that tells me is that they were worried about him coming in and firing him, basically.
Pretty much.
Because that's what Bill would have done. He would have been like, "Fuck you guys! You guys are doing nothing here. Get the hell out." And the fact that they didn't hire Bill to do that, that's hilarious. I think they should have, because that front office has issues. But whatever.
Well, I will also say that he does have experience already with the Falcons. Morris does.
Yes.
When they fired Dan Quinn, Morris became the interim head coach, and he had a 4-7 record with them, and then they went with Arthur Smith rather than give him the full-time job.
Yep.
But now they're bringing him back. He's had 3 pretty successful seasons in LA with the Rams.
There you go.
And I think they're pretty happy.
Yep.
Now, I will say that the Falcons apparently also did interview Mike Vrabel for the head coaching position, but ultimately decided to go with Morris. I think familiarity with the front office, familiarity with the people who are there. There's been some roster turnover, but there's probably still some players there from when he was the head coach in 2020.
Yep.
So I'm sure he knows his way around the organization, and I'm sure that helped.
By the way, I didn't read this part, but this is hilarious. Also from the Rams, Atlanta is hiring Rams quarterbacks coach and passing game coordinator Zach Robinson to be their offensive coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
And the Falcons have hired Rams assistant head coach Jimmy Lake to be their defensive coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
They just went, hey, the Rams are doing good. Let's just poach their entire coaching staff.
Which is more or less what just happened.
That's what they did. Yeah.
Yep. Now, apparently, David Tepper has found somebody that is willing to be subjected to his particular brand of mental torture.
He found a lot of people to be like the amount of hirings that they had to do. Let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They did 6 hirings.
Well, we're going to talk about right now Dave Canales. Dave Canales, who was the offensive coordinator for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last year, who, by the way, looked pretty decent. He now becomes the head coach of the Carolina Panthers. I know that he brought over the passing game or wide receivers coach or whatever his name is.
It was the run game coordinator, Harold Goodwin.
Yeah, and Brent Idzik.
Yep.
Brent Idzik is going to be the new offensive coordinator and will not call plays. So take that for what you will.
I actually haven't seen that confirmed, on what I'm reading, but I'll assume it's correct.
I've seen
I see head coach Dave Canales. We got Dan Morgan, which is the general manager. Assistant head coach, run game coordinator Harold Goodwin. Running backs coach, Coach Bernie Parmel. Wide receivers coach Rob Moore, and offensive line coach Joe Gilbert. Those are the only ones I've seen.
Yeah,
Confirmed.
they brought over Idzik to be the OC.
Okay, I haven't seen that confirmed
Yep.
on here, but
And then
I'll assume that's correct.
for any of the people that watch this, let's be honest, there aren't that many of you that might recognize the name Idzik. It's because his dad, John Idzik, was the general manager of the Jets when they had their disastrous 2014 draft. He had 12 picks, and by 2020, not a one of them is left in the NFL. He's the guy who drafted Calvin Pryor and Quincy Enunwa and Ike Enkapali, which everybody might remember for breaking his quarterback's jaw by punching him in the face in the locker room.
Sounds about right.
Yep. So he also drafted Jace Amaro over oh my god, Adams.
What?
Yeah. Drafted tight end Jace Amaro over wide receiver. Yeah.
Interesting choice.
Devontae Adams. Yeah,
Interesting choice.
pretty interesting choice overall. Made a bunch of dumb moves, and all of them were sucked. He took all 12 picks and tossed them into a pit of fire. However, I think the splashiest move has come from the Chargers. Dare we say it?
I could see that.
Dare we say it?
I don't know if it's the splashiest move, but it is definitely one of the moves.
Dare we say the most electrifying move?
That's horrible, and you should feel bad about yourself.
It would only be better if somehow or another Dwayne Johnson bought into the Chargers.
But that would be The Rock.
Yeah, but he's the most electrifying entertainer in sports entertainment.
Is he, though?
He claims to be.
Yeah, just because you claim you're something doesn't mean you are.
You know what? I'm not going to fight him over it.
No, I'll let John Cena do that.
So, as we were mentioning, the Los Angeles Chargers have enticed Jim Harbaugh away from Michigan. Finally, the will he won't he will.
Hilarious, too, when you know that he actually QB'd for the Chargers.
Yeah, that's where he started. Back in the day. But he left the national champion Wolverines. He won a national championship, said, tick, tick, I'm done, I'm out. Chargers land, here I come.
Time to go to the Chargers. Yeah.
So now we can only hope that the Chargers will stop chargering.
That's the hope. I mean, they also got a new GM in Joe Hortz.
Yep. Yep.
I assume the main reason is because Jim Harbaugh will work with him, I guess. That's my only guess, because Jim Harbaugh, we know, has been like his big thing has been getting to be with either he wants to be a GM or wants to work with a GM that's going to let him do what he wants.
Or that will listen to his input. Because in the 49ers world, they didn't want to listen to what he wanted, and they wanted to do their own thing. Now, you can say that both the team suffered in the immediate aftermath, but long term, they've been pretty damned good. We'll talk about that. And you can say that Harbaugh suffered in the immediate aftermath, but long term, it's worked out well for him too.
It's worked out well for him too.
So long term, both of those moves worked out, and I can say that parting, looking back on it now, was best for both.
Maybe it's hard to say what could have been though at the same time.
Yes, it's very hard to say what could have been. But overall,
it has worked out ultimately, yeah.
I do believe we mentioned that there was the possibility of this, but now it has happened. The Tennessee Titans, who fired Mike Vrabel, have hired Brian Callahan, the offensive coordinator from the Cincinnati Bengals. We had mentioned that last week. You had said you hadn't seen that confirmed. It is now definitively confirmed. He's been the OC for the past 5 seasons. And we'll see how he does. He's worked with Stafford, Carr, and Joe Burrow. So I think they're bringing him on because they want him to work with Will Levis and see if they can't bring him up to the level that some of those guys are.
Yeah, I can understand that. I don't know 100% if it'll work out, but That is kind of what they're hoping for sure.
Yeah, I think that is 100% kind of what they're hoping for at this point. Now, couple of coordinator positions because they're important
Couple?
in this case.
There's a lot of coordinators.
Well, there are, but I'm only going to.
I didn't realize how many of these there are. Jesus.
Yeah, I'm only going to go through.
Like,
a few
I have
of
it pulled
them.
up on my phone just because otherwise I would forget.
I have a bunch of it pulled up on mine too. The Eagles, they fired Brian Johnson and Sean Desai. They have hired new OC Kellen Moore and new DC Vic Fangio.
Yeah.
So Kellen Moore has had some decent stuff. Left Los Angeles after one season. We assumed he was going to open up that offense and get him throwing. I don't know if just Brandon Staley didn't want to listen to what he wanted to do or what the deal was. But whatever it was, it didn't work. Because in the when he was the OC from the Cowboys, his offense ranked in the top 4 in points per game and yards per game.
Yeah.
Fangio's had a really good defense in, like, over the last 13 years. He's been pretty dominant defensively. He ran the 2011 to 14 49ers defense. He ran some of those great defenses when he was head coach in Denver. Last year, the Dolphins weren't entirely atrocious on defense, especially considering the amount of casualties they would eventually suffer on defense.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not buying into that one as much as Kellen Moore. The Vic Fangio one still makes me feel like he's kind of old school in a way that I doesn't see. It seems like the offensive are evolving and changing, and he just hasn't kept up with it enough. If that makes sense.
Yeah,
like,
we'll see how it goes.
Specifically over the last 2 to 3 years.
The thing is, he's got defensively in Philadelphia. There's a lot of talent on that defense.
Yeah, we'll see.
So we'll see what he can do with it. Another big one for the Cleveland Browns. They got rid of Alex Van Pelt, their offensive coordinator. They have hired Ken Dorsey, who was the offensive coordinator for the Bills, and was fired in November. They didn't even wait for the season to end before they fired him.
Yep.
In fact, I'll bet you his firing coincides with the Bills' turnaround.
Partially it does, yeah. Which makes me wonder what the hell the Browns are doing. But at the same time, we know Kevin Stefanski was an OC, and he's an offensive guy, so I'm thinking that he's not.
And he's been the primary play
as,
caller since taking over in 2020.
Yeah,
I'm
pretty sure.
I doubt Dorsey's going to be calling any plays.
Yeah, yeah.
Outside of that,
who else we got here?
I mean,
Buffalo Bills offensive coordinator. They hired Joe Brady.
They promoted Joe Brady.
Well, close enough.
He was elevated. He was the quarterback's coach and got elevated.
But it's confirmed that he's staying as the OC.
And then the Bengals promoted Dan Pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
And the Patriots promoted DeMarcus Covington to cover down for Gerard Mayo.
Yep. Bears are hiring former Seahawk OC Shane Waldron as their new offensive coordinator.
And they hired Eric Washington, who was with the Bills last season as an assistant coach, defensive line coach. Yep. So, some interesting things there.
And the Raiders have officially have Antonio Pierce as their head coach, if we didn't talk about that before. And they hired their general manager in Tom Telesco from the Chargers.
Breaking news.
Yep, we got more.
Baseball news.
Oh, okay.
I have a breaking baseball news. John P. Angelos has agreed to sell the Orioles to 2 private equity billionaires for $1.725 billion.
Okay.
I
guess.
I mean, it's important to at least bring it up.
Yeah. Oh, and the Steelers hired offensive coordinator Arthur Smith.
Right. I almost forgot about that one, and I really want to forget about that one, but I can't.
Nope. So the Steelers decide we're going to get rid of one bad OC for another.
I hope he brings his magic 8 ball with him.
Oh God, that'd be so hilarious. We'll know for sure right away too.
Yeah, we will. Within the
We'll
first two
know.
games, we'll know because the offense will look completely different both games. One
Yep.
player will be utterly featured, and somebody else will be completely lost.
Yep. Yep.
Yep, we'll know. Won't take long.
It will not take long. But that's the big ones.
Those are the really big ones. I mean, outside of that, there's the hockey news is that unfortunately Heedle from the Rangers will be out for the season. He had attempted a comeback that did not take, and they have shut him down for the entirety of the season. Also, I do want to bring this up. You know what? No, I'm going to save it for Hockey Corner. It's something I'm going to talk about there. But I definitely am going to talk about what has happened in London, Ontario, Canada. Big news. And by the way, it is now confirmed. The names I gave you, they're confirmed.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll talk about that in Hockey Corner, but let's just say that 4 NHLers and a Sweden, I believe he's playing in Sweden currently. But he's...
I don't think he will be for very long.
No, I think he does have a reserve contract with an NHL team, though. They are surrendering themselves to police in London, Ontario, Canada for allegations stemming from, I believe it's the 2018 World Juniors of sexual impropriety, misconduct, and assault. So, we'll talk about those players, what that could mean, and I don't. The problem is, I want to discuss with you what should be the league response because I'm utterly at a loss.
I haven't looked at enough of the news to really give you enough of an to be able to properly say what the judgment is because I'd have to look at what the specifics of the allegations are. How bad are the allegations? What are they involving? Like I know what the allegations are, right? But I want to know like the story, if that makes sense. And as weird as that sounds, because context matters, right? Um, it's like saying somebody did an armed burglary, right? Well, what's the context of that? What was involved for that to happen? So depending on the situation, I think will severely depend on, well, the sentencing, so to speak, the severity of the punishment, right? And how involved was each player in the conduct that happened, right? Was one more predominant than others?
So we'll
right?
talk about that because I actually do have a blurb on what the complaint is.
But you know what I'm saying though, like
yes,
that does matter in determining what I think should be done. So
I will only point out that alcohol was involved. We'll talk about it in Hockey Corner specifically.
Gee, what a shock!
What a shocker! But yeah,
how old were they at this point?
World Juniors.
So they would have had to have been under 21 then.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, they would have been under 21. I can look up their ages now and we can track back if you wanted me to.
No, that's fine. I just was confirming that they shouldn't have even had alcohol in the first place.
They should not.
Okay.
All right. But we'll save that little tidbit for later. We will give everybody a skip warning. I don't know how long it's going to be, but you guys should. I'll let you guys know. Because some people might unfortunately, be very sensitive to that kind of information being read out, and you shouldn't have to go through that unless you are willing to go through it. And forcing you guys to go through it would be unfair to me or unfair to you all. And I know we don't.
You, what the fuck are you talking about?
We don't have a large audience, but
no,
I still feel like it would be appropriate to give out a warning.
That's fair. If somebody ends up running across that stuff and watching it later, you never know.
Mm-hmm. I'll probably actually segment that out So that way
we
everybody can find that particular piece when after I'm done editing. I'll find the timestamps and I'll timestamp it out so that everybody knows to skip this. All right. However, I do think that before we move on, there's one more piece of news we should talk about before we get into the games. And this will probably lead into thoughts you have on the Vikings.
Okay.
So
let's
get into this. Apparently, it's been reported by KFAN that Kirk Cousins' asking price is 2 years, $90 million. He wants $45 million a season.
Guaranteed.
To which I say, bye, Kirk.
Let him walk. Our discussion since the beginning was if we can get him under 40, I would be more willing to make that work.
Somewhere in 30, 35, 40, somewhere in there, yeah. But if he wants 40, he wants 45, nope, bye.
Yeah, let him walk.
Let him walk. I'm not willing to pay you $90 million for 2 years. Piss off.
No.
Yeah, no. So that is my official prognosis of that. Everybody knows I've always said that Kirk Cousins is an excellent pocket passer. He's a fantastic traditional pocket guy. Got a great arm, sees the field well, cannot move to save his life, and the moment he feels any kind of pressure, he's going to dump it down. Those are the negatives. So you know what you're getting with Kirk. If you have a stand-up, excellent O-line, you're golden. Dude's going to fling it everywhere for you. The moment he has to do any kind of scrambling, you're toast.
Yep.
So, let him walk. And I think if they accede to that level of dumbassness, I think it'll tell us a lot about KOC and Adolfo Mensa.
Potentially. It also depends on what they do during the draft, and I have feelings, so we'll see.
You want to talk about that?
Not right now. I have things in segments later that you can talk about it.
You got some potatoes for it? Potatoes or some, huh?
Potentially.
Potentially a potato or maybe an Inferno?
Potentially.
All right. Fair enough. But yeah, 2 years, 45 a piece. 2 years, 90 million is too rich. Nope.
Yeah.
You're going to have to come down to at least, I'd say 70 million, 75 million. If we could get you into that range.
I think the highest end would be 80, and even then that would be...
I would have trouble swallowing 80, so 70 would be where I'd want to be. That would be... Even that's high for me, but 2 years 70, 2 years 75, I could maybe get to, yeah.
Especially having to pay, JJ, because we all know what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the amount of people who keep saying that, like, maybe he'll get traded. No. Every rumor that I've heard that come out anywhere close, that has any substantial closeness to the Vikings is a deal's coming and coming soon.
Yeah.
Like,
he's going to secure the bag. Absolutely. Yeah. There's no question that he's going to be one of the highest paid receivers in football.
Oh, yeah.
He should be, too.
Oh, yeah.
If you can make... Dude played 10 games this year. And, in fact, didn't even play all of one of them. Or all of two of them, I believe. And still had 1,000 yards receiving.
Yeah.
Tells you everything you need to know.
Yeah, exactly.
Dude's a beast. All right.
So.
Well, I think it's time to discuss what we've been trying to avoid.
Yeah, I guess we can.
I don't want to do it either.
I don't want to do it either. 2
games this week. I'm going to talk about the first one. Chris will talk about the second one. I'm not even going to put up numbers up here because I don't think we picked right in either of them.
I don't think so. No. Did I pick the 49ers? I might have picked the 49ers to win.
You might have. You might be the one that got that.
You'll have to double check that.
You did pick the Niners.
I picked the
Lions. So you win this week by picking the one game right.
Woo!
Woo! So I'm going to talk about the Ravens and the Chiefs, and he's going to talk about the Lions and the Niners. So let's drill down into this and become highly disappointed.
This one hurt me a lot.
Oh, yeah. I watched this and I was just like, what is going on? No!
Pretty much. Yep.
Chiefs at Ravens. We both picked the Ravens to win. We both thought the Ravens were going to do it. They were going to be amazing. 17-10, Chiefs win.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was even a throw that it went. You know when I knew the Chiefs were going to win? I think it was still in the first quarter. Definitely the first half. They're chasing Mahomes out of the pocket. Mahomes is running for his fucking life. Just flings the ball up. And Travis Kelce makes a fucking catch that he had no goddamn business putting his hands on. And I watched him make that and I went, you're fucked. If he's playing like that, y'all are toast. In fact, the only touchdown Mahomes threw was to Travis Kelce. Yep. So, let's get...
Also, God, I'll let you go. Go ahead.
The refs.
I mean, they weren't atrocious in this game, actually. They were not good, but they weren't atrocious.
No, and somebody, before I even get into stats, whoever the head ref was, could nobody find that fucking man a throat lozenge?
Every call, yeah.
Every call, sounded like he might have been a pony. A little horse. I don't feel bad about that one.
I was going to say, I thought it sounded like he had a frog in his throat, but
Yeah, he was a little pony. He was a pony. Just a little horse.
No.
But yeah, every time out, man. I felt so bad for that guy trying to have to yell that shit out and just definitely did not have the voice to do it.
No. I don't know what happened. I don't know what he was doing previously, but...
Yeah, he wore his fucking voice out. That dude does not need to be speaking for at least a week.
For real.
No, seriously. When we used to get laryngitis in the military, we'd get profiles that would be no sounding off profiles. We couldn't yell.
Raise your hand.
No, it would be like when you're marching, you couldn't sound off with the cadence. You had to rest your throat. Stats, though. Stats. Patty, 30 of 39, 241 yards, a touchdown. Did get sacked twice for 11 yards, but didn't throw a pick. Pacheco, 24 carries, 68 yards. That's not that great, my dude.
2.8 average is not good.
Yeah, no, that's not very good. But you did get a touchdown, so some of that can be forgiven. Mahomes, 6 for 15. Somehow did worse. Kelce, 1 for 5. And
he was their best rusher.
Edwards-Helaire, 1 for 1. Apparently they had their dad on New Heights, their podcast, and apparently it's not Kelce, it is Kels.
I don't care. Everyone says Kelce.
Yeah, but that's because his
late.
dad got tired of... his dad let it happen because he was tired of correcting everybody. So he just stopped.
Everyone says Kelce, so...
We should just call him Ma'ato.
No.
Sorry, bad commercial. I hear it all the time, and I can't stop fucking having it run through my head. Speaking of which, Travis Kelce, 11 receptions on 11 targets, did not miss a ball for 116 yards.
That's the part that I was saying. That's the part I was going to say. It's crazy. 11 targets, 11 catches. That's fucking hell, dude.
Not just that, he passed Jerry Rice for, I believe, most yards and most receptions in the postseason.
Wouldn't shock me.
That's just dumb.
Dude looks like he was missing the entire season, and all of a sudden the fucking...
In the playoffs he's like, no, happened. I am going to eat the world.
Playoff Kelce, apparently. What the fuck?
Rashee Rice, 9 targets, 8 catches. That's pretty damn good, too. 46 yards. Valdez-Scantling, 2 for 2, 38 yards.
Oh my god, he caught a ball. 2 of them, in fact.
2 of them. Apparently there was a little kerfluffle, though, because Kadarius Toney, they said he was injured with a hip injury and he was out. He was apparently at home attending the birth of his first child and did not like the fact that they said he was out with a hip injury. And then Reed is clapped back saying, no, there was a legitimate injury too. And Tony's like, no, I'm fine. I don't know what's going on there, but I don't think he's a Chief for very long.
I imagine that it's very much one of those cases where he was in fact injured, not the reason why he was out, but he was in fact injured.
Both Creed Humphrey and Rashee Rice lost fumbles. Well, they didn't lose them, they did fumble. Mahomes, McDuffie, and Karlaftis all recovered a fumble. The defense did record 4 sacks from 4 different people. And there was 1 interception by Dion Bush.
Yeah, Bush.
In terms of field goals, Harrison Butker was 1 for 1 from 52 yards. On the Ravens side, Lamar, 20 of 37.
Not horrible, but certainly not great.
272 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. Also sacked 4 times. Was their leading rusher, 8 for 54 yards. Gus Edwards touched the ball all 3 times for 20 yards. Zay Flowers rushed twice for 4 yards, and Justice Hill 3 for 3. Zay Flowers, though, 5 catches on 8 targets for 115 yards and a touchdown. Obviously their best receiver on the day. Nelson Aguilar, 3 targets, 1 catch, 39 yards. Justice Hill, 7 targets, 4 catches for 34. Beckham, 6 targets, 3 catches for 22. I mean, it's just downhill from there. Both Lamar and Flowers would fumble and lose the fumbles. Zay literally on the goal line.
Yep.
Oh, I felt so bad for him because it was right after he got that foul for taunting. Then he went back and he punched the bench out of frustration and cut his finger open.
Yep.
I mean, their top tackler was Roquan Smith and followed by Kyle Hamilton. They had 2 sacks, no picks, obviously, as I already mentioned. And Justin Tucker was 1 for 1 from 43. I mean, that's definitely not the game we've seen from them. And I think the plan coming in from the Chiefs was to pressure Lamar, but do it in such a way that he couldn't escape the pocket.
The thing is, you look at his rushing, he still was able to escape the pocket more often than not, but, like, when he couldn't, it was a big sack.
Oh, yeah. And I'm, like, there were a couple of times that they definitely altered the trajectory of his throws because they weren't quite getting to him, but they'd hit his arm as he was throwing or whatever. Yeah. That's a definitive thing that happened. And it's quite obvious to me that I think losing their running back early on in the season and having just the rookie wide receiver, and Mark Andrews wound up being a non-factor even though he played. Yeah. I think that really hurt. I think I would have kept Andrews out, and I would have gone more with Likely because Likely has been really good lately, and there's a rapport there. And I don't think I'd have messed with that.
It doesn't seem like that would have really mattered much with how this game went, but...
Yeah, I don't think so either. But you never know. At any rate, Kansas City is headed to yet another fucking Super Bowl.
Someone shoot me.
And I am already tired of them.
Yep.
Okay, so that's the end of the Chiefs game.
Let's not talk about that. Chiefs make me sad in a lot of different ways.
Chiefs make a lot of people sad in a lot of different ways. Now everybody knows. If you're a Patriots fan, now you know why everybody hates you.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. All right. So you want to talk about the Niners now and the Niners and the Lions?
Yeah, we'll talk about the Niners and the Lions. So Lions unfortunately do lose that game 31-34. Niners do come out on top. It was a tale of 2 halves. Very literally in this case. Like, we're talking Detroit ended up at halftime 24-7 up and ended up losing 34-31. So it really tells you that just kind of early on, the Lions definitely had their foot to the floor and were demolishing the Niners. And then either the Lions lit up or the Niners finally figured their shit out and came back with the haymakers of their own. So
I mean, fair enough. Could be a little of column A and a little of column
a little
B.
bit of company probably. But let's look at the stats. So first, we'll start with the Lions. Jared Goff, 25 of 41. It's a little rough. Not bad, not horrible though. Um, but certainly could have been better. 273 yards, one touchdown. Yeah, unfortunately, having a single touchdown there is unfortunate. But you can tell by what I'm going to talk about next, they definitely relied more on their running game here. So David Montgomery, 15 attempts for 93 yards and a touchdown. Jameer Gibbs had 12 rushing for 45 yards and a touchdown. Jamison Williams had one attempt for 42 yards and a touchdown, because that was a banger of a start of the game, by the way. Just Jamison Williams having an in and around and just running it for 42 yards for a touchdown. Like that was a very good start for him. Receiving is kind of what you expect. We have right at the top Sam Laporta, 13 targets, 9 receptions for 97 yards. Amon-Ra St. Brown had 11 targets for 7 receptions and 87 yards. Josh Reynolds had only 4 targets for 1 catch and 25 yards. And it kind of falls down from there. David Montgomery did have 20 yards receiving off of 2 catches, and Jameer Gibbs had 11 yards receiving off of 3 catches. Not great. Certainly not bad. They had it kind of going again early on, and Sam Laporta and Rouse St. Brown were kind of the guys going for it, and then unfortunately things kind of fell apart for him. It certainly didn't help that in the second half, Jameer Gibbs coughed up the ball and ended up losing a fumble back to the 49ers, which is a bit of an oof. Now, the Lions did come away with an interception off of Brock Purdy. Malcolm Rodriguez got that interception. And let me see here. We have 1 sack from them on Brock Purdy, which is actually kind of hilarious. I thought they would have had one more sacks, but they only were able to get to Brock Purdy once, which for a stout defensive line that typically is the Lions, that is wholly lower than what you would expect. And that's kind of the Lions. Like, again, tale of two halves. So let's look at the 49ers and Brock Purdy. So Brock Purdy, 20 of 31. Very similar. Not quite exactly the same, but similar. 267 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Christian McCaffrey had 20 rushing attempts for 90 yards, which is, a little lower for his average, but he did end up with 2 touchdowns. Brock Purdy was scrambling a lot, 5 rushing attempts for 48 yards. They had a hard time. It was weird the amount of times I saw them put pressure on Brock Purdy, and he would just run out of the pocket and get several yards.
Especially in the second half.
Especially the second half, but they never put a QB spy on him. I kept watching it and being like, why is there no QB spy on Brock Purdy? I get it. He's not Lamar Jackson. He's not super speedy, but like, if you're going to flush him out of the pocket, you need to have a QB spy on him. Because otherwise, he's just going to get a free 5 to 8 yards almost every single time. Like,
he's just mobile enough to pull that off.
Yeah, he's young and mobile. I don't know why they never put a QB spy on him. They easily could have. I just don't know why they didn't. All right. Now back to what I was talking about. Receiving. Deebo Samuel had 9 targets, 8 receptions for 89 yards. Brandon Ayuk had 8 targets, only 3 receptions for 68 yards and a touchdown, though. McCaffrey had an additional 5 targets for 4 receptions for 42 yards. And it kind of falls apart from there. George Kittle only saw the ball 3 times, caught 2 of them for 27 yards. So Kittle has been basically a non-factor for this entire season, actually, in a weird way. I remember several years ago, George Kittle being, compared to Travis Kelce as the other best tight end in the league. But ever since those first 2 great seasons, he's been kind of non-existent almost. It feels weird to say that, and I'm not sure why that is.
Well,
but it is what it is.
He did have 1,000 yards this year.
I know, but he's been so quiet about it in comparison to previous years we've seen him.
Oh yeah, I don't disagree with that at all.
So it just feels weird. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, you're not telling me anything that I haven't thought of.
The 49ers defense was able to sack Jared Goff twice, so they were able to put more pressure on Goff than the Lions were able to put on Purdy. And let's see here. Kicking, Jake Moody had 2 of 3 field goals, and all 4 extra points were good. So, yeah, it's one of those things where their stat lines ultimately ended up being very similar, and I mean, you kind of would expect that when the game is ultimately 31-34. It's just watching the game was one of those moments where at halftime I was like, I don't see how the Lions could lose this without just shit in the bed offensively and just giving everything up because the defense was just doing work all over the 49ers offense. And then all of a sudden the 49ers offense started cooking in the second half, and I'm like, ooh, that's not good. And then all of a sudden the Lions offense stopped being able to do anything. And I was like, oh, this is the exact thing that I said would have to happen for the 49ers to win. And remember, there is one thing that I said last week with the 49ers Green Bay game, which is the 49ers are resilient as fuck. Even when it looks like they're going to lose, they somehow find ways to win. And this was the epitome of that, just tenfold. Like, legitimately, like, you look at the games and you go, man, I feel like we've already played this game literally last week. Because it was almost the same exact game against Green Bay. It was almost the same exact thing. Where they were losing the game, and they had to come back in the second half and ultimately win the game.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened.
100%.
So.
Bless you.
So I'm hoping that resilience is what will push them over the edge against the Chiefs, because frankly, I don't want to see the Chiefs win another fucking Super Bowl.
I agree. I agree.
Oh, hi. How are you, buddy?
It's a Loki.
Hey, bud. He wishes to say hello. Meep?
Meep?
What?
Meep?
He's
been pretty good today.
He was with Grandma out in the living room for a bit.
So that's made him pretty calm today?
Well, calm and, well, as you can see, he's still quite talkative. What?
Really? Are you
What?
sure?
What? What?
I did not know that.
Loki? Meow, meow, meow. Loki, Loki. Yeah, you're a goofball.
He is kind of a goofball, but he's adorable.
He can be. He's got his moments. What? What?
I want Scritch's dad.
Nope, he doesn't. He just wants to be the center of attention right now.
Okay.
Do you want to be on my hands? Sometimes he just wants to sit on the hand. It's warm, so.
Yeah, I'm sure that's got a huge bit to do with it. All right, then. Do you have anything else to say about that game?
No, not really. I kind of went over everything I wanted to say.
All right. I mean, I am disappointed that we're going to have to watch the Niners and the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. I think that's going to be very disappointing.
I mean, could be worse. Could be the Packers.
If it were the Chiefs and the Packers, I definitely wouldn't watch.
I know, right? That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Like, I had to think about that for a second, but it could be worse.
Oh, anyway. At this point, let's do some stuff.
Oh, really?
You want to do some game balls?
Sure, why not?
Let's do game balls. Game balls. You can start.
Travis Kelce,
God damn it.
he gets a game ball. I don't want to give him one, but he definitely played well.
God damn it. He stole my first one. He's first on my list. CMC, you get a game ball.
That's fair. Brock Purdy, you'll get a game ball. You did well enough.
Nick Bosa, I'll give you a game ball.
That's fair. That's fair. What? You know what? David Montgomery. I'll give you a game ball.
And I'll give my last one Zay Flowers. Good performance,
Okay,
even in a losing effort. You had over 100 yards and a touchdown, and you really tried your best. Even though you let your emotions get the better of you at a point in time when you really couldn't afford that.
Really couldn't afford it, yeah.
But overall, you tried hard to make up for it. So, game ball. Obviously, we don't have any power rankings to do because there's really only 2 teams left, and who cares?
Nope. We still got showers and Inferno, though.
Oh, we definitely have showers. You ready for some showers?
And potatoes, in fact.
And potatoes. Yep, I've got all of those.
Showers, for Infernos, and potatoes. Yeah,
showers.
Sure.
I'll start with showers. Ravens defense hit the showers. That was abysmal.
That's hilarious, because Ravens offense hit the showers.
I singled out a specific part of the Ravens offense for our next one. Gus Edwards hit the showers.
To be fair, when you only give him the ball 3 times, is that really his fault?
I know, but come on.
That's why I called out the entire offense. That includes staff. Jahmyr Gibbs.
God damn it!
Hit the showers.
You stole from me. You know what? Even though you won, Isaiah Pacheco for 2.8 yards, you get to hit the showers.
That's fair.
I know you had a touchdown, but come on.
That is one of his worst games. But I'll do something similar. Jameson Williams. Bro, you got targeted 3 times for only 2 catches for 25 yards. I know you had that big run that popped off, and that's what kind of started your first half run that you had. But, for being touted as the next big receiver there, it really seems like it's not you, and it's Amon-Ra St. Brown.
And now Sam Laporta. All right. I think that's 3 showers apiece.
Mm-hmm.
All righty. Inferno time. You can start.
All right. I'm going to start off with I think I'm going to start with it hurts me to do this a little bit, but I think I'm going to do it. Let's start with the Ravens offensive staff, coaching staff specifically. I already called out their offense in general, but I'm going to call it their offensive coaching staff because, and I'm gonna put them probably only in the first circle here because it's just you did well the entire season. What the fuck was that? It just felt like you guys could not only not get anything working, but you made 0 adjustments at the half.
Yeah.
It felt like you were relying on Lamar to bail you out, and he finally hit a wall that he couldn't bail out by himself, and you gave him no help. That's what it felt like.
So what circle?
First circle.
First circle. All right. Anything else?
Nope.
All right. And it pains me, but I have somebody in the first circle as well, and I really don't want to put him here, but we've talked about it already. Dan Campbell.
Oh, yeah.
Go to the first circle. Look, all year long, you've been biting kneecaps, taking names, running through walls, going for it on 4th down when everybody says you're crazy, and making it work. I will say that I would have flipped the fourth downs you went for it on. I think I'd have gone for it at the end of the half instead of taking the points. And I think that if I had run into a situation where I only needed a chip shot field goal to tie the game, send it to overtime, maybe win it, I think I'd have taken the chip shot field goal. I know you're getting a lot of flack for that, and I know that you have, we can second guess you and play armchair quarterback all day long, play Monday morning quarterbacks, and that's a thing. But you know what? Uh, this has to fall on you, and you're going to have to eat it. I think you have done a good job of that so far, and that's why you're only in the first circle. You didn't come out and try to belay the blame to anyone else. You took the blame on yourself. You said, you know what, we've done this all season, and this time it didn't work out for us. Good job to you. Huge fan of the fact that you went ahead and said, you know what, I'm gonna take the fall on that. So you'll be back again, though. I have every instinct in me tells me that your team is primed for a run.
I agree with that. So for my next pick here, it's also not a thing that I exactly want to do, but I am going to call out the Lions defense. I'm putting them in my second circle because what the fuck was that, man? Like, you guys collapsed so bad. I get it. The 49ers are good, especially offensively, but, like, it just felt like they were able to do whatever the hell they wanted against you guys the entire second half.
That's got to also fall on Aaron Glenn for not making the right adjustments.
Yeah.
And then also your offense for just those first couple of series. I just watched their offense. I went, oh, no.
Yeah, exactly. I get you guys were on the field a little bit more, but, like,
that fumble right away, I was like, oh, no.
Yeah. And 17 unanswered points, man, in the third quarter alone. That's just not good enough for you guys. It just isn't.
Yeah. So what circle?
Second.
Okay. I'm dropping way down already.
Okay.
My next one is just titled, Whoever Made the Decision to Hire Arthur Smith as an Offensive Coordinator. We've suggested that it might indeed be Tomlin. And if it is, congratulations, welcome to the seventh circle. Because did you not watch a Falcons game last season? The man couldn't coach.
Maybe they just like the Magic 8 Ball.
I mean, maybe. Or they have extra copies of Coaching Football for Dummies.
Are we sure the Magic 8 Ball isn't just named Arthur Smith?
It might
be.
The
person holding it doesn't actually have a name?
like the puppeteer guy, Scarface from Batman.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But no, I've already said, and I think this was before the broadcast started, before we started recording, I kind of said, hey, maybe he'll be all right as a coordinator, and he was just overwhelmed as a head coach. We'll see. We'll know very quickly if that was the case or not. But as of right now, based off the resume of the last couple of seasons of his being a head coach, you went from Matt Canada to Arthur Smith, and I think you're going to see similar results because I think they're essentially the same coach.
I would agree with that, yeah. I'd agree with that. All right. And for my next one, I think I've done this one before, but it's only being, I think, only more cemented as the hirings have mostly come and gone at this point. Seahawks management. You're in my 8th fucking circle, man. You're wet. You push Pete Carroll out, and then you watch all of the hirings happen, and are still left coachless. What the fuck are you doing?
That's
I have
fair.
nothing else to say outside of that.
That's fair. What circle? Oh, 8th, right.
8th, yep.
I am going all the way down, one below that. David Tepper.
Fair.
9th circle. Your management style and your particular form of mental torture
It is mental torture to watch
have
those
cost
games.
you all the great coaches, and so you had to reach and find Dave Canales? Now, if he can do with Bryce Young what he did with Baker last year in Tampa, I might eat those words. I somehow doubt it.
I was gonna say I don't know how much faith I have in
I
that.
don't think so. I don't
Because
think
let's
so.
be honest, Baker and Bryce Young are so different of QBs.
Oh,
So different.
absolutely, and that's I think the problem is that you're hoping for some sort of guy to coach Bryce Young, and all of the really good head coaches were not going to take an interview with you because you have run through quarterbacks, or not quarterbacks. You have run through head coaches like toilet paper, my dude.
Pretty much.
And
You
a
wipe your
lot of
ass
that
with it and then throw them out.
well, a lot of it is your management style. You think you know what you're doing, and you don't. You
Yeah.
really need to go hands off of that organization and let people who know what the fuck they're doing run that organization, because you've got no clue. You are lost.
Honestly, he comes across as the type of the guy that's not that doesn't like the word no.
Exactly. You seem like, what's the opposite? What's the male version of a Karen?
Well, I know there's Chads, but that's not it.
No.
I know somebody's brought it up a couple of times, but I forget what they actually call
You're a
them.
male version of a Karen, dude. Basically, you are I'm going to speak to your manager and I'm not going to take no for an answer. Meh, 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 meh. I don't care if my coupon is a year out of date. I'm going to use it here anyway. They're going to let me.
Mm-hmm.
That is the energy you give off, my dude.
Pretty much.
And now it's cost you great head coaches because Dave Canales?
Well, I guess we'll see. Listen, if we fire him halfway through the season, then we know for sure that the Panthers are just a burning train wreck.
You know what? I am.
Oh,
Because we're coming up on our post-season podcasts. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. We're coming up on the postseason podcast, and we're gonna have to do a full 32-1 power ranking. And pretty sure we all know where the Panthers are gonna be. Yep, you that's the energy you give off, my dude. Yeah, definitely a Kevin or male Karen, whatever you want to call it.
Whatever they're called.
Yeah, whatever. All right.
I always forget.
Potatoes.
Potatoes. You want me to go first or you?
I'll go first. And the first one is going to be a nice soft lob.
Okay.
Maybe Brock Purdy is much better than some of the media seem to think he is?
I mean, to be fair, I think I addressed this. I think we talked about this halfway through the season, roughly, where I think you gave me a potato where you said he's not as good as people think he is, and I think I didn't chew on that one either. I think he is a starting QB. I think he's a really good QB. I think he's definitely better with the sum of the parts around him, no doubt. Put him on a different team, he might struggle more than for sure, but I think he's definitely a good QB, and I think that the narrative around him, at least as of the last couple of weeks, has been a bit more negative than it should be.
Mm-hmm.
Is he as perfect as he was prior? No, he's definitely having some struggles, and he's still trying to work through those, but he's definitely still finding success even within that.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
I can agree with that. I just, because you hear, oh, he's a game manager. I don't think he's a game manager, dude.
I mean, he plays the role of game manager, but he's got the arm of somebody who's not a game manager. If that
and
makes
the
sense.
legs
Like,
that can just enough to move him around.
He's got the intelligence of a game manager, but that doesn't necessarily mean he always plays as a game manager.
He's a poor man's Joe Burrow.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. All right.
That's always how I've seen him. Is a Joe Burrow-esque, just a little less athletic.
Yeah.
And that's about it. All right. Well, I'll throw you an easy one now too. Maybe Lamar Jackson isn't the MVP.
that you say that's easy, but if I look at his overall stats this season,
I know, but you know how the league is. Everything is so short and narrow-sighted nowadays. It feels like.
I still think he's the MVP this year.
You think so?
Actually, to be completely honest, I would say it's CMC personally, but that's kind of where because I want somebody other than a goddamn quarterback to win it, but it never will.
Never.
Somebody other than fucking Patrick Mahomes, please.
I was gonna say, watch it be Patrick Mahomes again
God
this year
damn
somehow.
it.
Now that they've made the Super Bowl, that's what I'm saying. Like, regardless of
God
what you and
damn
I
it.
think, I think Lamar Jackson had statistically his best season he's ever had.
Absolutely.
And played amazingly, and just had a stinker of a game. Basically.
Yeah, and even then, it wasn't a
And even
horrible
then,
game.
it wasn't even him that played bad. It was
mostly
everything
their
around
defense.
him that played bad.
Yes. But I still think that, I think for all the injuries that they suffered through, I think that you really do have to look at that as potentially, like, I'm not going to eat that because I think he should be the MVP if you're going to choose a quarterback. Right. But I do think CMC and Tyreek Hill are both had statistically better seasons.
Yeah.
All right, my next one. Maybe. Just maybe. The Lions are going to the Super Bowl next year.
Way too early to call that. Way too early. They definitely have the pieces that they need for sure. Now, whether that actually ends up with them getting there, I don't know. But they definitely have the right coach, I think. I think they have a good enough QB. I'm not going to say that he is the QB, but he's definitely good enough. We've seen him in the Super Bowl, so he's definitely good enough for that, right? Especially with some of the parts around him, right? They have a really good defense that's got some young players that we expect to see evolve and continue to get better next season. Same thing with their offense. But I definitely do think that they have a good shot. I'll say this. They're definitely probably... I'd be surprised if they don't make playoffs next year. I'd be surprised if they don't even make it back to the NFC Championship. I definitely see that happening. Now, whether they actually get to a Super Bowl, that seems hard to pinpoint 100% yet, considering the fact we still have to see what happens in the draft and who gets what and all that.
Injuries and things like that, too.
And injuries and all that, yeah. But based on what I've seen, this is a stellar performance that it's going to be hard not to have high expectations going into next season, right? So, I'll say that. I'm not buying into that they're going to the Super Bowl, but they definitely have the caliber of team now that you can look at and go, oh no, they're definitely favored to potentially make a Super Bowl next year or the year after for sure. So, their window's open for that, put it that way. All right. I know what I want to do for my last one, so I'm trying to think of the second one.
You're going to hate my last one.
Ooh. I got one that's in theme with what you just did to me, so here we go. Maybe. The Texans will go to the Super Bowl next year.
Again, it's a little early to say that, but I mean, you have to be really excited for that team. I think you've got a great... Yeah. The offensive coordinator looked good this year. DeMeco Ryans has everything clicking as a head coach. The defense looked a killer. And you're going to get Tank Dell back. And, I really think that team played incredibly hard and incredibly well. And I'm going to be...
It was weird.
Very interested to see what they do.
Stroud looked like he was in the league for already 3 to 4 years.
Yes.
He already looked like he was... As if he literally is the epitome of hit the ground running.
Oh, 100%. And let's put it this way. Look, there are two guys, because there's a whole list, and I wanted to talk about them, and we didn't. And maybe we will here in a minute, because I sent you all of those lists that are the lists.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We'll talk about that.
I was going to save those until closer to our end of our season awards show. But
yeah, but I mean, it's the award. It's the NFL nominees. And I just kind of want to talk about that and go over it because there are some people that I believe are left off. and some people that are on there that shouldn't be. But that's just me. But there are two clear head and shoulders guys for Coach of the Year. One of them is Dan Campbell, and the other one is DeMeco Ryans.
Yeah.
If either one of them wins it, it is perfectly acceptable. But yeah, no, it could honestly be a Texans Lions Super Bowl next year, and I wouldn't bat an eyelash.
Not at all.
Not at all.
That'd be kind of entertaining, actually.
That would be really entertaining. I'd actually watch
I wouldn't
that.
even care who wins that. I would just be like, this is fun.
I'd actually watch it.
I mean, I would silently be rooting for the Texans because, like, you know, Vikings fan. I can't do that to myself, but it would still be fun to watch.
Yeah. So my last one, you're gonna hate it, and I already know you're gonna toss it in the trash.
All right.
But I'm gonna throw it out there, just based on the evidence that we have.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Patrick Mahomes is better than Tom Brady.
It's actually a bit early to call that at this point, just because Tom Brady winning, 7 Super Bowls or whatever it is, like, it's hard necessarily to say that Patrick at this point is better. I will say that he's the next closest to Tom Brady, and he's the closest that could potentially overtake Tom Brady. I will say he's more athletic than Tom Brady, for sure. There's no questions on that. I don't think he's as smart as Tom Brady. I think Tom Brady's football IQ is better than Mahomes, and I worry that that's what's going to get Mahomes down in the dumps as we continue to see his career. I'm worried that eventually that athleticism, as you get older, naturally is not going to be as high as it was when you were younger, right? So I worry about Patrick Mahomes' longevity. Tom Brady had a longevity that was so insane because he kept up with himself as best as he could, and he tried not to take too many hits, and he didn't try to run the ball too much. We'll see. We'll see. Does Patrick Mahomes catch up to Tom Brady's records at all and potentially surpass them if he continues to take care of himself better? Maybe. But currently, from what I see from Patrick Mahomes, I don't think he will. And I think ultimately Tom Brady will have the edge. I think he will be in the talks of, when you talk about basketball GOATs, right? A lot of people will bring up like LeBron, Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, Magic. Like, there's a lot of people who end up being in that conversation. And I think that Mahomes has done enough to earn himself to be in that conversation. I just don't think there'll be a lot of people who definitively will say that he is better than Tom Brady.
So,
but,
here's why I say that. He's about to go to his 5th Super Bowl.
Yeah.
He's already won 2 of them.
Yep.
That took Tom a lot more time than it has taken Patrick. Which, if he keeps up...
To be fair, Patrick has, I think, a lot more talent around him than Tom did, especially in the early years.
I won't say that you're wrong. I think this is the least talented Chiefs team we've seen.
Yeah, and it's still pretty talented.
Yeah. So I'm just putting it out there, like.
Yeah.
That's why I said I'm going to throw it out there, and I know you're going to hate it because the Chiefs are irritating.
Yeah. Like I said, we'll see where the end of the career ends up. But I think by the time Mahomes ends his career, I think it'll be not only sooner than Tom Brady retired, like as far as their ages, but I just don't think he'll hit the same numbers Tom Brady did because Tom Brady was in the league ultimately longer, and I just think that's what's going to happen. I think Mahomes' age is going to catch up to him, and if he doesn't evolve his football style to be more of an intelligent football style versus his crazy athleticism, it's eventually going to not work anymore. And that's kind of my 2 cents on it. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he does evolve. Maybe he stops trying to run the ball as much and take as many hits as he does and stop trying to throw on the run all the time because eventually he's not going to be able to do that anymore. As you get older, it becomes harder to do that.
You know who else that particular style caught up with?
Michael Vick.
Russell Wilson.
Russell Wilson's another one, yep.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we see those athletic guys do amazing for several years. Cam Newton, even. Like, they do amazing for several years. In fact, you look at them and you're like, oh my God, look how good they are. But after they get into their 30s, especially late 30s, it starts to slow down enough.
There
Where you
have been
start
a
questioning
few that have been able to evolve their game to be better. Randall
Yes.
Cunningham comes to mind.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. If he can evolve, he has a chance. But if he doesn't evolve, then he won't.
Yep. All right, that was my last one. What do you got?
I want to preface that I hate this one as much as you're going to hate what I say.
Go ahead.
Because it's so batshit insane right now, as it stands, would be the dumbest thing that anyone would ever do. But you and I know traditionally that what we would do and what most people would do is not necessarily what this organization would do. So maybe, just maybe, the Vikings will not draft a QB in the first round.
Sadly, that's a real prospect.
I know.
Fuck. Like, I think if they're able to go up and get one of the top picks, they'll definitely take a QB in the first round. And I think they're trying to do that. Mm-hmm. But if they have to sit at 11, they may not. They might grab a Kool-Aid McKinstry or Cooper DeJean or a corner, a really, really good corner. Or,
a really good corner.
Or something. That's not entirely far-fetched. Or even like a Drazon Newton or something, DT, which I would hate. Or even, like get Jared Verse on the edge or something, or Dallas Turner or something. Mm-hmm. But even those, I would not be very pleased with. Mm-hmm. Or what's that kid out of Clemson? Nate Wiggins? Corner? That so. One wouldn't be horrible. I would be okay with that, I think. But there's also the chance that they trade down. Mm-hmm. They're the fucking Vikings, and Adolfo Mensa does love to trade back. Mm-hmm. I can't. I'm going to eat it plain because I can't say that it's not a possibility. I definitely give it a possibility because they do shit like that, and you just look at it and you go, "What the?"
They need a QB. If you're not bringing Kirk Cousins on, and you don't get anyone in free agency, which I don't see many free agents that I really want.
No, I don't. They're obviously Baker's not going to hit free agency, or I'd take him in a fucking heartbeat.
Yeah, exactly. It's just one of those things where I look at it and I just go, God, if you don't get a QB in the draft, a lot of people are going to laugh at you, bro. A lot of people are going to be like, what are you doing?
Yeah, it's going to be the end of your fucking tenure.
No, 100%. That's what I was going to say. Like, if they don't pick a QB in the draft, and they don't somehow make a stellar season with what they have, which I don't see how they could, unless Jaron Hall somehow is really good, even though from what we've seen, he's maybe a backup QB at best. Like, I don't see how you keep both. I don't see how either one keeps their jobs.
They wouldn't.
I really don't.
You wouldn't. Really you'd be gone by the end of next season. You'd be gone mid-season.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah, it would be bad.
So.
And I'm sure that immediately they'd go, okay, Brian Flores, interim head coach.
Potentially.
Yeah. But yeah, I think at this point, even they see the writing on the wall. And if Kirk is asking for $45 million a year, they're not going to shell that out. I don't think they're that insane. Especially not where they're going to have to pay JJ an insane amount of money.
Exactly. I think they have to know that they have to get somebody in this draft that is going to be heir apparent. Like they just know they have to try something. Because what they have now isn't it.
No, but
at the same time, are they going to?
If Denver decides to eat the cap hit on Russ.
No, I don't want fucking Russell Wilson.
I don't either. But if I could get him for $20 million.
Oh God, no. We wouldn't be able to get him for that much. Denver wouldn't. We'd have to give Denver something so insanely good.
No. What I'm saying is, by eat the cap hit, cut him.
Oh, I don't think they will, and I don't think you'd even get him for $20 million, even if they did.
That's what I meant. If Denver cuts him, and he becomes a free agent.
No, they'll try to trade him, and any trade that we do with him would be
I would not
horrendous.
trade for him at all.
No.
That contract is fucking toxic. I don't want that contract. Which is why he's untradeable, because he doesn't produce enough good numbers, and his contract is fucking just stupid.
Oh, it's horrible. Yeah.
It's horrible. Now, if instead of trading for the number 1 pick, if we were to make a deal for Justin Fields, I'm not opposed to that.
My only concern with that is simply due to the fact that for how long he's now been in the league, which I think is 3 years now, right?
Something like that.
He hasn't... I won't say he hasn't developed, because that would be incorrect, but he has developed very slowly.
He has, but if you look at
I don't know how much, to be fair, that is on the Bears as an organization, as a whole, as the coaching staff. I don't know how much that's on them versus him. I don't know if it's the different offensive coordinators he's had. There's obviously some questions there, but it does draw some concern, and at least of what are they going to ask for. Because if they're gonna ask for a ransom, no.
Yeah, no. Obviously, it would, whatever they would ask for. I think it would have to be less than the first overall pick would fetch them.
100%.
I think you would still get a first rounder out of it, dependent.
I wouldn't give him more than a second, to be honest, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I might give him a first next year or the year after, like a 2026 first.
It'd have to be like a conditional first.
Yeah, it'd have to be like, I would put a condition on it that if he plays X amount of games or something, yada yada, like the Aaron Rodgers deal, where if you play in so many percentage of the games or so much percentage of the snaps of the season, then it becomes a first. Otherwise, it's a second. Yeah, exactly. I could do that. I could swallow that pretty easily, along with like a couple of things, and that would be a trade for Fields.
Correct.
It would be a lot less heavy on your pocketbook than trying to trade for the first overall pick.
Exactly.
I would still rather have the first overall pick and take like a Caleb Williams, but
100%. And honestly, if I was the Bears, being that we've already heard that Caleb Williams has no interest in playing for the Bears, it would be in their best interest to try and get a ransom for that first overall pick.
I agree, 100%.
Because if they do draft Caleb could just go, no. Like, and then what do you do?
Yeah. I agree with that. I just, like I said, I'll eat that potato plain, though. The Vikings could do something completely fucking insane.
Obviously, you and I are like, man, they could do something actually really intelligent. They could potentially move up. Heck, they don't even have to like move up that far to even get one of the other QBs that are really good.
Yeah, you don't have to move up that far. But at the same time,
if we watch the draft and there is not a move up from them at all, that's going to worry me to my core that we're going to trade down.
or that we're going to take a cornerback right there.
Yeah. We'll get somebody in the second round again. Oh my god, because that's worked the last 2 times you've tried that. Like, don't get me wrong. Obviously, I realize the idea.
I feel like if we're going to see a trade for the first overall pick from anybody, that it's going to happen before the draft does.
Probably,
just like it did last year.
Yeah, it typically does. More often than not.
So I think we'll know.
But we do have a while before the draft comes up. I mean, draft's not until April, right?
Several months. Yeah, several months from now, we'll know if the Vikings what they're doing, and we'll talk about it. And then on draft night, if they haven't done anything, and we don't see them move up to like the 5th pick or something, we're gonna start getting nervous.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, like like you said, the first pick will likely get traded prior to the draft. Anything after that typically will happen during the draft.
100%.
So, is there a chance that they move into 5 or 6? Potentially. We'll have to see. But I would obviously prefer that we go for that first and just give them 2 first-round picks or whatever the fuck it is, Because obviously we're not giving him JJ. Like, the amount of people I've heard be like, give him JJ. No, that would be
No,
fucking
that would be
stupid.
fucking
Not only
stupid.
that'd be so dumb. You'd be giving the best wide receiver in the league to one of your rivals. Like, what? No, don't do that. That's the dumbest
dumb.
shit I've ever
That's
heard.
the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. No.
Like, no.
And I don't know if it would cost us 2 or 3 to move up from 11.
I would say at minimum probably 2.
Yeah.
I don't know if it would take 3, but definitely 2, and probably a second or something of that accord.
I would say 2 firsts, a second, probably a 4th, and a pair of 5ths and a 6th or something.
Unless we can give them like a player or 2 they want, yeah.
Yeah, unless we can get in a player or 2.
Like, you want Harrison Smith? You interested?
And anyway, no. So that's the end of that one there. Do we want to predict the Super Bowl?
Bird, like go on the microphone. You're being a goof.
Well, he's your bird.
And his name happens to be Loki. Parents keep saying it's my fault. I named him that, and I should have known better.
You should have.
But at the same time, I feel like he would have been a goof regardless, to be honest, because he kind of was already a goof to begin with. So I don't know if it made it worse, but if it did, that is karma.
Do you want to predict the Super Bowl with me?
I mean, we both know what I'm going to pick.
We're both going to pick the Niners, let's be honest.
Yeah. I don't want to see the Chiefs win another Super Bowl.
No, I don't either. I'm tired of it already.
I'm kind of tired of them being even in the playoffs. I was really hoping that they were going to miss out on it, and they almost did. They still made playoffs, and then I kept watching and going, maybe they'll lose this game. No? Okay, maybe they'll lose this game. No? Okay, maybe they'll definitely lose this game. No? God damn it.
Tired of you, Pat.
How? Did you make a deal with the devil?
But, no, so, yeah, I'm going to be straight. I kind of want the Niners to win, if only because I want to see CMC and some of those guys
some of those guys deserve a Super Bowl by now, yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple of guys on that team that you're like, yeah, they should win one.
They're good enough. They deserve one.
Yep.
As for if they will or not, I can cross my fingers.
As we've mentioned, they're resilient.
They are, but as we've also seen the Chiefs happen to somehow make magic happen in the playoffs, and I don't get it. So we have a really resilient team against a magical team. We'll see which one ends up being the better one.
Yeah, yeah.
As Tom Grassi, the scriptwriter, would say, he's a Chiefs fan. So we'll see how that goes. Oh, gosh.
All right. Hockey corner? Is there anything else we want to talk about?
No, there's nothing else we want to talk about, but now I'm concerned about this hockey corner, so let's go ahead, I guess.
All right. At this point, I am going to give out a disclaimer, and at this point, I am going to bloop right here. We are going to cut and make a segment out of this. If you do not want to hear descriptions of things, do not watch this. I am going to talk about the way that it is worded in here in the actual incident complaint that happened in 2018.
Yep.
This is your chance to opt out and just skip ahead to the end. In 3, 2, 1. Okay. There was a lawsuit filed by some women in London, Ontario, Canada, around the 2018 World Juniors. They allege the complaint was filed in April of 2022, and they allege that they were assaulted by 8 players on June 19th of 2018. They were players for and members of the CHL and Hockey Canada, including but not limited to members of Canada's U20 men's junior hockey team. According to the lawsuit, the women first met the players at a bar in London, Ontario, where a player, referred to as John Doe 1, bought her alcoholic drinks. Once the women became more intoxicated, and eventually went to a hotel room with John Doe 1. Once in John Doe 1's hotel room, the two engaged in sexual acts, whereafter John Doe 1 invited in the rest of the John Doe defendants into the room without the plaintiff's knowledge or consent. The plaintiff claimed that for over the next several hours, John Does 1 through 8 engaged in several sexual acts which collectively constituted sexual abuse and assault. In addition, the woman states that she could not give consent to any of these actions because of how intoxicated she was, and that the group of 8, John Does 1 through 8, would not let her leave the room despite multiple attempts by the victims.
So my first question is, were they also intoxicated?
And in the end, does that matter?
It does. In my book, it does actually matter, because that means neither party should be able to consent, because that's how that works.
Yeah,
if
you're
one party. So my point is that it does matter if the other party was also drinking. That means that they were also not in their right mind either. So it does matter. Were they also intoxicated?
But in the end, it's all going to come onto them anyway. So
no, I agree. I agree but that's going to change the severity of the penalty in my book.
It probably would. Yes. Now we're going to see how that works out. So now we need to talk about the news that just came out recently, which is 4 NHL players whose names are, and I'm going to say them because they are actually being released to the news. Otherwise, I would totally not say their names. But in this case, they've been released. The London, Ontario police have asked for them by name and given them until, I want to say February 5th to turn themselves in. Yeah. They are, from the Flyers, goaltender Carter Hart. From the Calgary Flames, forward Dylan Dubé. From the Devils, center Michael MacLeod and Cal Foote. Also, there was a gentleman from Switzerland, Alex Formenton. Formenton?
No idea.
And he is a reserve player for another team. They gave all of these guys until the 5th to turn themselves in. They have all remanded themselves into custody. All of them. The first dominoes began to fall when Carter Hart was given a leave of absence from his team for an unspecified reason. After that, there were the other 3 players were noticeably absent from team activities and practices. And then Alex Formenton's name was mentioned because he was given leave from Switzerland. And people began to put 2 and 2 together. These were all guys from the U20 2018 team, and we knew there was some stuff moving in the works and had been for a little while. So we're going to have to see what happens with all of those gentlemen, and based on what we're seeing. Now, my question isn't what should the courts do, because that's a whole separate topic.
Well, I was going to say, but that, while I agree with you, whatever penalty happens, whatever the courts find or whatever the court's decision will affect whatever the league ends up doing, in my book.
I agree with that. The question is,
so obviously, in my book, the league should absolutely wait and see what the courts ultimately find and decide on before making their own decision. I'll outright say that.
That's what it sounds like they're doing right now. They're in a holding pattern on this.
Because you and I have heard so many stories of false allegations just because of persons who have become famous or have now money, right? Like, we've heard that.
That is not.
I'm not saying that's what's happening. Obviously,
exactly. We are not trying to downplay this and say that is what is happening, but it is a thing that does happen.
That does happen. So it is in the best interest for the league to wait on that. However, do we want to go over speculations on how things play out, depending on how things play out? Is that what you want to talk about?
No, I was more interested in if they aren't jailed, but they are fined or whatever else and have to go on a registry, like kind of a medium light punishment type
Basically,
of thing.
they more or less they get like a guilty plea or something similar.
Yeah, they get some sort of plea deal. What should the league do?
So
Because
depending on
I'm
the
at a loss as to how you would handle that.
so I think it depends on what ultimately happens with that plea deal, because we've seen plea deals where defendant will will take a plea deal, but is still able to deny any wrongdoing, kind of thing. So there are plea deals we've seen that before where it's they are taking a plea deal, they are paying money to whoever it is, but they are not claiming responsibility for what happened, kind of thing. In that case, then the league has to take that as okay, something might have happened, but equally something might not have happened. So we still don't know really what went down. So can we really find them? Can we do anything? Maybe a suspension of just like 2 to 3 games or something like that, or however whatever is common in the NHL. I don't know how many games is common for suspensions, but you see what I'm saying, 3 to 5 games, something like that, right? Nothing super bad, but enough to go, hey, obviously there must have been something that happened, so we're gonna also suspend you guys for just a couple games, right? I could see that. If, for example, that doesn't happen, that they take a plea deal where they do take at least some amount of blame, or some amount of blame is able to be levied at them, then it comes down to, okay, what's the severity of said thing? Has there been other previous complaints that have come up from on these individuals in the past? Have more come up any recent times at all? If no, then we have to assume that they may, and is like I said, they may have been intoxicated themselves, which could affect how this entire thing plays out. But if not, then we have to look at, okay, at minimum probably at least a full year suspension. If it ends up being worse than that, like there's a like full on, not necessarily jail time, but well, okay, let's say that there's even partial jail time, right? Like they don't do a full on sentencing, but maybe they're in for 3 to 6 months, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, now we're talking definitely a year suspension at minimum, if not potentially just straight up. I don't know how common it is to be blacklisted, but almost on that edge of potentially being blacklisted, depending on how things play out.
Fair enough. I I just wanted to.
Yep.
I just wanted to bring it up because I, as a person, am unsure of how I would want to handle it. I mean, it's such the idea.
It's a difficult topic, obviously.
It is a very difficult topic to discuss, and it's.
I think the only way they walk away without any suspensions is if it actually goes to court and they prove that the accusation's completely baseless.
Yeah.
Like that's the only way they walk away without any suspensions in my book.
Exactly.
In my book, they're minimum going to have 3 to 5 game suspension, up to a year, potentially a couple years, even up to straight up expulsion kind of thing.
Yep, and that makes perfect sense to me. Okay, if you skipped the hockey corner section, which I don't blame you if you did, and that is perfectly acceptable, welcome back. We are now going to do I am going to do the NHL Power Rankings. I will already come out and state there will not be an NHL Power Rankings next week. And the reason why there won't is it's the All-Star break, so there's not really going to be any games being played right now.
Right. Not much to talk about.
Not much to talk about next week. However, there is a new team in the Power Rankings this week.
Now that I think about it, there's not going to be much to talk about for the NFL next week either. So
no. So maybe we should do. Do you want to do a 1 to 32 next week?
We can do our end 130 to 2. I mean, obviously we won't be to know who wins the whole thing, but that should only matter very slightly.
Yeah, that shouldn't really matter all that much.
Yeah. So I guess we could.
Or we could do an awards or something like that. We'll figure that out.
Normally we do our awards at the very end, because sometimes we have our Super Bowl
I wouldn't
awards.
mind doing like a 1 to 32 next week.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I'm okay with that. All right. So, at number 10, welcome to the list, Tampa Bay Lightning. You are 27-18-5 with 59 points. In your last 10, you are 8-2-0. The Lightning are rounding back into being the fucking Lightning. Andrei Vasilevsky is back to being Andrei Vasilevsky. The Lightning, after the All-Star break, are going to just be a holy terror. I feel bad for the league. Number
Pretty
9, the
much.
Vegas Golden Knights, 29-15-6, 64 points. In your last 10, you're 6-3-1. You've had some injuries, you're still dealing with it, and you're slipping. You're slipping. Take the break, get healthy, try to find your bounce back. Winnipeg at number 8, the Winnipeg Jets, 30-12-5, 65 points. In your last 10, you're 6-3-1. You were one of the hottest teams for a while, and now you're starting to fall off a little bit. You don't want to burn yourselves out. Relax, relax, take the time down. You're going to need it. It'll be okay. Number 7, the Florida Panthers, 31-14-4, 66 points. Last 10, 6-2-2. Panthers just cruising along, just like always. Do. Number 6, the Carolina Hurricanes, 28-15-5, 61 points. The last 10, 7-2-1. Number 5, the Edmonton Oilers at 29-15-1, only 59 points. Then again, according if you look at them compared to most teams, they have anywhere between like 3 and 5 games behind almost every other team in the league. In their last 10, they are still 10-0-0, and they are now up to 16 straight wins. They are one away from tying the all-time record of the 92-93 Penguins at 17. They do not have another game before the All-Star break. The game they play when they come out is against Vegas. When they come out of the All-Star break, Vegas and Edmonton has huge implications for Edmonton. If they win that game, they tie the 92-93 Penguins. Which, that's just dumb. The fact that you can get that many wins in a row, stupid. Like we said, though, Edmonton is one of those teams. At one point in time, they were the 32nd team in the league. They were abysmal. And now they have playoff aspirations. Number 4, the Colorado Avalanche, 32-14-3, 67 points. In your last 10, you are 7-3-0. Again, Colorado is Colorado. They're a wagon. They do Colorado things. I hate them. I hope they're buried by an avalanche. Ha! Number 3, the Dallas Stars, 30-13-6, 66 points. Last 10, 7-2-1. I mean, what do you say? The Stars are, again, a wagon this year. And I despise Dallas. I hope you lose in the playoffs. Actually, I hope you make it all the way to the game before the Stanley Cup Finals and you get beat up by Edmonton. Piss off. Burn. Yeah, I hate Dallas. I hate the Stars. I will never forgive you for stealing my hockey team. At number 2, the Boston fucking Bruins. 31-9-9, 71 points. Last 10, 7-1-2. I mean, it's Boston. I'm tired of talking about them. There's tired to talk about is Kansas City.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's fair, yeah.
Yeah.
And number 1, again, the Vancouver Canucks, 33-11-5, 71 points. In your last 10, you are 8-0-2. I mean, wow. The difference between last year and this year, night and day, boys, night and day. Good job. You're playing some good hockey. All right. So, your streaming schedule is going to change. More than likely.
I mean, we'll see how things go. I still don't know 100% on everything that's going on, so I'll find out tomorrow.
All right. That's a potential. We still hope to do Friend Fridays of some type or form.
Yeah.
And we'll see. We'll keep everybody looped in as to whether or not that's going to be a thing that can keep going or not.
Pretty much. I have a feeling that everything will still keep going and still running fairly similarly. I'm hoping that this will not affect things too much, mostly due to the fact that I think I'm going to be working mostly early morning shifts. And if that is the case, then the only difference is I just won't be staying up super late at night, but everything else should still be more or less the same. The only difference is I probably won't stream as much. Like instead of doing like 4 to 5 hour streams, they might be only like 2 to 3. Um, and in that case, I'm also not going to upload. So I'm roughly trying to upload 2 episodes per day, roughly, on my channel. It'll probably go down and do maybe one a day because if I'm having less time streaming, that means I have less content, which means I can't upload as often or as much as I have been. So,
And also, editing takes time.
yeah, editing also takes time. So that's why the streams, in fact, would have to be cut in half so that I could have the other half of the time to be editing everything. So, in fact, I'm more worried about how this is going to affect my my big ass fucking project that I'm working on, my Liza P video. That that was already looking like it was going to be a 2 month project that's now turned into a 3 month project that's now turned into potentially 4 to 5 month project. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. And I still have to follow it up with a Sekiro review. It's not going to be nearly as long, but it's going to be some type of review, which I still have to beat the last 2 endings of the game before I give it a full proper review. So that's going to be fun. I'll have to do that on my own time at some point.
It is a little easier the second time through, isn't it?
It is easier the second time through, but I have to play it now third and fourth time. So we'll see how that goes. Because I've already beaten it twice, obviously. I'm uploading the last part actually as we speak. So the last part will be done today. So my New Game Plus run of Sekiro will be complete today. Which is funny because the last boss fight that took me like 3 hours last time to beat, I beat in like, I think like 45 minutes. So significantly reduced amount of time. And in general, like it just got better as I played. Obviously, I still have issues with that game, which is why I still want to do a review because it's not as flawless as some people want to say it is. It's definitely got some issues in some bosses, particularly that I think that are problematic, in my opinion. Like that great ape boss, the guardian ape, can suck on my nuts. Like that boss is horrible to play against. And then the bonus boss fight. I don't think I'll ever beat that bonus boss fight. The 2 apes. I don't think I'll ever be able to beat that. That is ridiculous. And I'll go over that obviously in my review. I've seen people beat it, so I know it's doable, but that doesn't mean that I can do it and that I want to subject myself to that.
There's a level of torture even you can subject yourself to.
Yeah, exactly. I saw one person do it on their third try, and it pissed me off. Because I watched it going, how do you get that lucky? Regardless, I'm currently playing through Wulong. I had my second stream yesterday. That's going to be the next thing that I start editing and uploading. After that game, we'll see how things go. Obviously, Bloodborne is still on my list of games to do, and because I now have a job, Neo is 100% on my list because I've heard a lot of people really enjoy Neo and Neo 2 specifically. A lot of people really.
I haven't played
Neo
2, but one I really enjoyed 1.
I've heard people say they liked the first one, but they loved the second one. So if you liked the first one, maybe you should also check out the second one. I heard a lot of people. Then. Yeah, because I've heard a lot of people say that they absolutely adored the second one specifically. So, and apparently, like, it's actually got a story, which
Neo 1 even had a story.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it actually has a story, which surprises me. I did not think that.
And here's the funny part. Here's the funny part. This story is actually rooted in history.
Well, yeah, I've heard that, but I've heard that it's actually, like, not only is it, like you're saying, it's rooted in history, but it's actually, like, a good story. Yeah. Like, it's told well.
100%. So, and it involves actual historical people.
Yeah. So I'm curious about that. Wulong is in the same vein. The difference is the story is kind of there. Like, it's definitely there, but, like, I'll just say this. When you start watching my gameplay of that, the English dubbing has a lot to be desired. Especially with, like, there's like 2 or 3 characters that I can think of, like, right off the bat that have some really bad English dubbing.
Yeah, when I find games like that, what I usually do is turn on the Japanese language with subtitles.
Well, this time it would be Chinese, but yeah.
Chinese with subtitles. I turn on the original language with subs.
So normally I would. I absolutely normally would. But I know that there are some people who don't necessarily watch everything that I'm doing and will just have it in the background and be listening to it. So I want them to have the opportunity to be to hear what's going on without having to look over at subtitles all the damn time. Like I
Mm,
know even you do that. I know that sometimes you'll be editing and
yeah,
just
a hundred
listening. You're not
percent,
necessarily looking over and watching,
a
right?
100%.
So I don't want to force you to have to like pay 100% attention to what's
Yeah,
going on.
because when I played Ghost of Tsushima, I think my favorite thing, because I beat it with just standard regular English dialogue and
Yeah,
everything, but when I went back and I turned on, they have like a film, like a black and white
yeah, the
film
black and
feature.
white film. Oh
Turned
my
that
god, it's
on,
so
and then
fun.
I made the language Japanese and I put on subtitles. Oh, I
Oh,
felt
it's
like I
so
was in a
fun.
Kurosawa film.
Yeah, which was the point to be fair. It
Oh
was so
God, it was
good.
so good.
Um,
Great
that's a
game.
game that's a game I might go back and play on this channel just for the funsies of it. I've already played it, but it's a good game.
It is a really good game.
I would say it's a Souls light. Like it's got
It's got
Souls like
some Souls
elements in it.
element, but
Yeah,
overall, it feels more like a Souls Assassin's Creed mix.
yeah, yeah. It's got like I would say that there's definitely difficult fights in that game that enough where you could argue that there is some Souls elements for sure in that. Especially the end boss. Like he didn't take me super long to beat, but I did have to try him like 4 or 5 times. Like he was kind of difficult.
I think I only needed twice.
Yeah, I think it took me like 4 or 5
I think it
tries.
took me
Like
twice, but that's not because I think the second time I got lucky, and I hit the ghost meter
oh yeah, that's
pretty
fair.
early on in that. And when that
Yeah.
happened, I think I was just able to start because of all the add-ons. I was able to use the ghost meter to slaughter his little sidekicks, and
Yeah.
after that, I was just able to focus on him. He's
Yeah.
still a bitch, but once you get his move patterns down, he's not as bad.
It's not quite as bad, but it's still like it was also like the most. It was one of the best fights too because they had all the
Oh,
cherry blossoms around you and everything
yeah.
going on at the
Oh,
same
oh,
time. Oh my god,
you're
that
talking
fight, yes,
that one.
the
No, that
the
one
end, the
never.
literal end fight.
That one never took me that long.
I think it took me, like I said, 3 to 4 tries on my first playthrough.
I always beat it like the first or second time through. That one,
Yeah.
for some reason, I had more trouble with the con than I
Oh, see, I
did
beat him on my first try.
with the last fight. And that last fight is super cinematic, though.
Oh yeah, like the I think the con was actually easier in my book for some reason. I think it's because that very last fight. Obviously, like the game's been out for a while, but I'm still not gonna spoil the ending. I think it's because he's just faster, and it throws me off a little bit more, especially coming off of the con fight where like let's
It,
be
it
honest, that guy
helped
is kind of a
me.
tank.
It helped me that I went through and defeated all of the swordsmen.
See, I hadn't at that point. Like I had
Yeah,
beaten, I
if
think
you
only
go
half
through
of the
it, all the
swordsmen.
swordsman duels in the
Yeah,
game, you'll really be set up for that one by the end because you'll
yeah.
really have a feel for one-on-one dueling by that point.
The thing is, I got about halfway through the game and was like, or sorry, I was about halfway through like all the content, and I just kind of got to a point where it's like I just kind of want to finish the game. Like I'm ready to just finish the story, because the thing is, there's a lot of content in that game, but like a lot of it starts to get repetitive, just like an Assassin's Creed game after a bit.
A bit,
Doing
but
all
I
the
really do. I really
you know,
enjoyed like the swordsman fights that because they were
yeah,
always cinematic and fun to do.
yeah. I did a couple of them, but like I said, I just got to a point where I was just like, I'm ready to just finish the story
I'll be honest.
and I'll come back and finish everything. And I didn't, and so that's kind of why I'm like, I kind of want to go back and like actually do like a full completion run through it.
I'm gonna be honest. I spent a lot of time petting foxes.
I also did too. I went out of my way to actually find all the foxes
Yes, and
just
and
because
then
like
pet them.
that was awesome.
I love the fact that you can pet them.
Exactly, the foxes were great. Pet the foxes.
Pet the
Um,
foxes.
and also just the like certain areas were more fun to travel through, like that had all the flower. What were they called? Not lilies, but all the tall grass that you
I know
go
what you're
through, and
talking about, and then especially because you
like
use the wind as a
those little
guide to your
fields.
next point, and then the wind
Yeah,
blows and the whole thing sways, and it's just
yeah.
so
It's just it's so cinematic. It's hard,
yeah,
and it's not like a cutscene or anything.
there.
It's just good.
Yeah,
It's just
so
very
much
good.
fun.
I can't wait for the second one because we all know the second one's coming. Like I don't know if they've officially announced it,
They
but
haven't.
like we know it's coming. We know it's coming. The first one was so successful. But the team that did that game are the type of team that doesn't typically put out a sequel
No, they're gonna wait.
unless it's not only like really good, but they also want to like really iterate on it. Like they're not going to just create the exact same thing and just slightly change it up. They like to come out and completely change up the formula from what you think,
100%.
But they left room for so many options in that game that like I don't know how you don't do a sequel with the same character even.
Oh, you could with the same character. The idea of having him. The idea, though, is that he would have to be Ghost of something else because the concept that I heard was it would be him leaving the island to go hunt the Mongols on the mainland. Not the Japanese mainland, but the actual Chinese mainland.
Oh, okay.
Or Korea.
I heard the actual main. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because if you want to keep with history, they never actually made it to Japan.
That's true. They never actually did. They made it into China very far, but
they even became subsumed and became their own Chinese dynasty. But that's a whole other thing.
That's a whole different thing.
Yeah, but something like that because they did actually attack Tsushima, but then when they were trying to go from Tsushima to the Japanese mainland, their entire fleet was wrecked by a hurricane.
Yeah, they got smacked.
Yeah, they got smacked by nature.
In fact, I think that happened to them twice.
I believe so, which is hilarious.
Yeah, both times a hurricane.
So
in fact.
The concept
it's like how
was him being captured by the emperor, but then being sent to infiltrate China to kill the Mongols to keep them from coming to Japan.
I could see it. That would make some sense.
Something like that. We'll have to see exactly how that works, but I'm sure they'll come up with something intriguing.
Oh, I'm absolutely sure they will. That studio in general has not faltered much. I'll put it that way. Like they've generally have come out with very good and interesting things, and they've also done very good justice to just like the historical aspect of a lot of their games. Like they don't whitewash anything, and they certainly don't add like a bunch of wokeness or whatever you want to call it, PC political correctness into their games either. They just go, this is the history, and this is what we're going to tell it.
Mm-hmm.
This is the way it is, and that I think is awesome. Because it's just that's the type of like if I want to watch history or if I want to play a history game, I want it to be the history, not your interpretation of that history, right? You know what I'm saying? So
there probably is so much of history is interpretation, but that's a whole other concept for a whole other podcast.
It is to a certain degree. But
and if
like,
we were to get into that, this podcast will be like 6 hours long.
Yeah, you get my point when I say that, though. Like,
I do.
I just mean in general,
completely understand where you're coming from.
You know, like if it's gonna be an Asian history, I'm expected to be playing as Asians. You know what I'm saying? Like,
well, I mean, in Neo, you are playing an Asian history, but you are not playing an Asian. But there's a reason for it, and it actually does.
Like some of those, yeah.
No, it does actually follow real history. The guy.
No, I know. There's the
guy you play as is actually in history. He was a Dutch trader who wound up on Japan.
I know. I read the book.
Oh, okay.
There's a book
cool.
There's a book that's based on that entire thing of him being stranded and ending up becoming kind of integrated into that society.
Mm-hmm. And it looks like they're making I saw some sort of mini series called Shogun that I believe.
I heard about that, but I'm not sure if that's what it's based on or not.
It looks like it is.
Okay.
But I'm not sure because it's definitely some white traders. I don't know what else to call them. In Japan, learning
colonial traders, I guess.
Colonial traders, yeah, there you go. That are in Japan learning the Japanese culture and language and everything. So one would think that would probably be what they're actually doing.
They're referencing, yeah.
Yeah.
I forget what the name of that book is, but it's such a good book. If you haven't read it, it's so good.
Yeah, I'll have to look up the guy again, but yeah.
There's I don't know if they actually used the same names. I think they changed the names in the book, but there's definitely a book about him, basically, and it's so good.
Yeah, not my favorite. My favorite book of all time is a book that everybody hates.
Well, I wouldn't say it's my favorite, but it's definitely one of my favorites. It's in the running.
The reason why everybody hates it is there's no punctuation.
There's some books like that I can't tolerate.
No,
man.
Even better. The guy specifically wrote it with no punctuation and then put in 4 pages of punctuation at the back so you could put it in wherever you wanted to.
That bothers me because that means there's so much interpretation of what the fuck that actually book reads as. Because let's be honest, punctuation is very important because, I mean, people have made so many points to that, but like, there's a difference between helping your Uncle Jack off a horse and your Uncle Jack off a horse.
It's so funny because this guy is the same guy who his friends literally thought he was an idiot.
I can understand that, actually.
And so they tried to ruin his business, and it only made him rich.
I would say I'm shocked, but I'm really not. Also,
Well,
no, it doesn't sound like Friends.
Well, like they told him, take winter gear to the Bahamas. So he did, just in time to catch a group of Portuguese traders that were headed all the way over to China, where it was going to be needed, in the northern parts of China. Yeah. So he got paid very handsomely for it because they didn't have any and they needed some.
Well, that just sounds like a lack of planning on their part.
It was just so weird because every time he would take something somewhere, it would be one of those things of like, now they don't need it, but there just so happens to be somebody there who needs it because they're going somewhere else where it can be sold. I just went, he got rich off of it, and everybody just finally stopped giving him tips because they were trying to ruin him on purpose. He never realized it and got rich.
So in other words, he was kind of an idiot if he never fucking realized it.
Oh yeah, absolute moron who got rich.
Hey, that's called dumping all of your stats into luck.
Oh, what was the guy's name? I want to look it up now.
Because that's the only way that happens, is if you dump all of your stats into luck. Speech and luck. That's all you got. Charismatic moron that happens to be very lucky.
This might be the guy. Yeah, this is the guy. Timothy Dexter. He was largely uneducated. His business sense was considered peculiar. He was advised to send bed warmers, used to heat beds in New England winters, to the West Indies. His ship's captain sold them as ladles to the local molasses industry and made a handsome profit. Next, he sent wool mittens to the same place where Asian merchants bought them as export for Siberia. People jokingly told him to ship coal to Newcastle. Fortuitously, he did so during a Newcastle's miners' strike, and his cargo sold at a premium. On another occasion, practical jokers told him he could make money by shipping gloves to the South Sea Islands. He arrived there in time to sell the gloves to Portuguese ships on their way to China. He exported Bibles to the East Indies and stray cats to the Caribbean islands and again made a profit. Because the Eastern missionaries were in need of the Bibles, and the Caribbean welcomed a solution to the rat infestation. He hoarded whaleboats by mistakes, but ended up selling them profitably as corset stays. So he wrote a book called A Pickle for the Knowing Ones. That initially he had distributed it for free, but it became popular and was reprinted 8 times. In the second edition, Dexter responded to complaints about the book's lack of punctuation by adding an extra page of 11 lines of punctuation marks with the instruction that printers or readers could insert them wherever they needed, or in his words, they may pepper and salt it as they please.
Punctuation's important, though. Like
I said, that dude deserves a video. He's hilarious.
Fuck hell, man.
Anyway, we're gonna let you all off there.
We've gone so sidetracky at this point.
We got so sidetracked again, but we do that a lot. Next week we will do a 1 to 32 to 1 breakdown. How we see the teams, power rankings. We'll have a week to come up with that. I'm pretty much got 32 already penciled in. And I don't think anybody's going to argue with me.
I'll argue with you.
Yeah, you
Probably
would.
not.
Probably not. I think we're both going to have the same team for 32.
Rude.
Hey, you like to argue.
Well, it's not the Jets.
No, thankfully this time it is not the Jets.
That's all I know. Is it's
not the Texans either.
I know it's definitely not the Texans. Remember, I had the Texans higher than you.
It's not even the Cardinals.
And it's not the Cardinals either. Heck, it's not the Colts.
It's not the Colts, thank goodness. But yeah, there are a few teams that could be at the bottom, but there's really one that deserves it.
I mean, I can think of at least a couple that I could put down there.
I can think of 2 or 3.
That's what I'm saying. I can think of a couple.
But there's only one, in my opinion, that deserves it.
One of them is known for being very good in the past and no longer being very good.
Yeah, but they don't deserve it just yet.
Oh, I don't know. You could argue that coming off of such a big high and then having such a huge low could be deserving of it.
Yeah, but their owner is trying to fix mistakes. The team I'm thinking of has an owner that is just an ass.
Well, no, I know. I'm well aware. But, like, is the owner actually trying things? I mean, we'll see how things go. Based on the decisions that have been made, you could argue that he may be trying, but we don't know 100% yet.
We'll get into this next week. We hope that all of you are back for it.
But yes, I do agree with you that there is one that is significantly worse in every possible aspect across the entire football division. Like, and I don't mean just like their offense is bad, their defense is bad, their front office is bad, their owner is bad, their drafting is bad. Everything is fucking on fire.
Like, that whole team is just a flaming dumpster at this point.
Yeah, and man, when the owner got that franchise, it was, probably at its highest point it had been in a while.
I don't know when he actually bought it.
Wasn't that like 5 years ago?
I'm about to find out. I'm curious.
I'm pretty sure it was about 5 years ago. I know it was more recent. I think it was like when they were at the top of the top kind of thing. Or I should say near the top of the top, not necessarily the top of the top.
2018.
Yeah, so about 5 years ago. Well, 4 years ago. So, no. 3, yeah, 5. Yeah, about 5 years ago now, at this point. So, yeah, I mean, just thinking about that, just think about the high that team was coming on and the absolute slow sink and absolute catastrophic nosedive they took after. Like,
well, yeah, because the year before he bought them, they were 11-5.
Yeah.
They lost in the wild card.
Yeah.
And then the next year they were 7-9.
It's what I'm saying. Like, took a team that was slowly becoming relevant and decided to nosedive them.
Then they went 5-7 the following year, 5-11 overall, but 5-7 under Ron Rivera, then 0-4 under Perry Fillwell.
Yep.
And then 5-11, and yeah, we'll get to that. Yeah, pretty much.
So,
as soon as he took over,
they were on the upwards. They were originally coming, like, at that point when he bought them, they were on an upward trajectory for that team. That team in general was kind of pretty just meh here, and they were slowly climbing up. And then he bought them and went, the way back down.
Look, it's a roller coaster.
Whee! If you're a fan of the team, you know exactly who we're talking about.
You want to. Anyway, we're going to leave it there. There shouldn't be any serious guessing as to who we're talking about, but we'll leave it off here. We'll see you all back next week. We hope that all of you have a wonderful week. We hope that whatever you decide to do and put your mind to, that you accomplish it and just stay with it. And we'll remind everybody out there, we want you to stay bearded, and we'll say